welcome to Syntax. In this Monday hasty treat, we're going to be talking about how you can have the perfect sitemap for your application. So that way you can land some SEO scores that are awesome, but not only that, get all your pages listed accurately and all the things we love about search engines. My name is Scott Tolinsky. I'm a developer from Denver, and with me as always is Wes Boss. What's up?
Hey, all right, good. I'm kind of back. I recorded one before this, but I was on paternity leave for a couple weeks, and shout out to CJ for filling in there. But it feels good to be back in the horse and recording back in my office. It's real nice.
It does feel good to be back in the horse. I also am back. I was at JS Nation and out in Amsterdam. Incredible, amazing conference. Maybe the best conference I've been to in terms of like organization, structure, and all that stuff. One of the things I really love for me as a speaker is they put every single thing that I was supposed to be a part of on my Google Calendar.
Oh,
so that way I was
love
just like,
that.
I had everything I knew where I was supposed to be at all times. And for somebody like me, that's really, really necessary.
I love that because you don't have to fight with the time zones either. You just look at your phone. Where do I need to be right now? Although when I was there, I literally missed the boat.
For that speaker center or
there was
something?
a boat to the boat, and I missed
yeah.
the boat to the boat. Like I ran up to it, and everyone's like, they were like it was like one of those cruise ship things. They're like leaving, but luckily one of the attendees there had a car, and he's like, "Don't worry, we'll drive to it." So we drove to the big boat.
I honestly wish I would have missed the boat because that boat was hot and there was a lot of people in it. And it was
it felt
low
like ceiling.
Yeah, it felt like it was going to sink. I was very nervous. But, other than that, it was awesome, man. And then we got to explore Amsterdam for a week. And then we flew over to Italy and went to Venice and Florence. Like, I did the trip with my kids, so it was like a really cool experience for them, getting to see all that stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But also, one nice thing about being back is that I get to see all of the errors that occurred while I was gone in our Sentry, which that always happens. So if you want to be able to track all the stuff that happens while you're away, so that way you can fix it when you get back, or maybe get the alerts while you're on vacation and have them go to somebody else to have them fix it, head on over to Sentry.io. It tracks all your errors and the issues in your application, and it really makes solving bugs easy is really what it comes down to. And this show's brought to you by Sentry. So thank you so much, Sentry. So let's talk about sitemaps. While I was on the plane to the conference, I decided to build a new website for myself as part of like my talk. And it's not done. It's still dusty. There's still a lot of I haven't even touched the mobile layout for this thing yet. But what I wanted to have all of my demos be like embeds in this website. And I've never had a blog or anything. My websites have always just been very simple. And this time I was like, well, if I'm going to do all these demos for the talk, they're going to all be embedded iframes. Let's kind of have this be a blog of some kind. So I made it a blog. And the next thing you know, I'm thinking, well, now that I got a blog, I should be really thinking about SEO on this thing. So sitemap time. And then it got me thinking, what about sitemaps? It's something that I've kind of just done on every site. I have a sitemap sort of route for SvelteKit that I just port over to each application. Yeah. Or I run a generator or something, and I just use a sitemap. And I began thinking about the individual fields, like what's actually necessary? What do I need in here? And how has it changed over time? Like, what is a sitemap doing for me? So I figured this would be a really great episode to just get into all about sitemaps. Why do you need them? What can you do with them? What do you even need within a sitemap in 2024?
Yeah, that's good. And you built the initial sitemap for the Syntax website as well. And that was really nice because I've been going through, not anymore, but probably over the last 6 months, I've been watching the Google Webmaster Tools, trying to get our content index. Since we made a pretty major shift in terms of additional pages, there was a lot more content on the website from the old one. It was kind of interesting to see how do you tell Google, hey, there's now an extra 1,500 pages on this website.
Yeah, and that's really the answer is the sitemap. So you might be wondering, why do I need a sitemap? What does it do for me? How does it improve SEO? All of those things. Well, first and foremost, a sitemap really allows for better indexing and monitoring of your indexed pages. So it lets the search engines know exactly the map of your site. hence the name Sitemap. It lets the search engines know the structure of them. And in turn, it allows the search engines to also be aware of potential changes and updates to certain pages and when to essentially relook at those pages. And with that improved idea of structure for your application comes along better SEO. Now, a sitemap itself doesn't help with the ranking itself, right? It's not going having a sitemap isn't just going to get you ranked high, but it's going to help the crawlers find the relevant content on your applications and understand what the general structure of your application is without it having to guess, right?
Yeah. You can't use it to trick Google into pages that are not linked from anywhere. Google still has to be able to find that this is the page you're telling me about, but where have you linked from it, right? Is it being linked from another website? Is it being internally linked from inside of the page? For us, it was the transcript page, which is it was a brand new page, and I wanted all of that to be indexed because it's a lot of good information, and that's very good for SEO if you're searching for a specific topic. In fact, I find that when I Google for a specific syntax episode, the transcript page will actually come up before the actual show notes page because the transcript page has literally every word we've spoken inside of it.
Yeah.
But initially I had a hard time getting those indexed from Google. And it was a mix of how often is it updated? Should I be crawling this page? And all the stuff we'll talk about today.
Yeah, totally. So first and foremost, let's get started. What kind of formats do you need or can you use for a sitemap? I always personally just thought it was XML only, and looking into
Me too.
it,
I'm surprised to see this.
So according to Google and all of the information out there, you can have a sitemap that's in XML, like what most of them are. You can also have a sitemap that's just RSS. So if you're publishing an RSS feed of your entire application, you can use that as the sitemap. And third, you can have a text file, a TXT file, which is literally just one page per line. Incredibly simple, right? Just straight up one full URL per line. That's it. That works as a sitemap. That's a totally valid sitemap.
And what's the file called? Sitemap.txt?
Correct. Yep.
And does sitemap have to be, I might be getting ahead of us ourselves right now, but does a sitemap have to be named sitemap.xml? Or
that's such a good question.
Is there a meta tag that you can put?
This is one I have to Google. I did not even think about this. It's something you just always do, which is funny. You can name your sitemap anything you want, according to Google. You just have to, when you submit it to the search engines, developer consoles or whatever they are, search consoles, you just specify the path to it. I had no idea. I would have assumed that you would need to name it sitemap just based on the convention. But according to Google, you can name it anything you want. And you can place it anywhere on any route. So it doesn't need to be just /sitemap.
That's really handy if you have, for whatever reason, you don't have control over top level routes because your application doesn't allow you to do that. Mm-hmm. It would be nice to be able to do that. I probably would still try my darnest to make it sitemap.xml because like robots.txt, it's a standard that
there's no reason not to do
follows.
It unless you absolutely can't, right?
Yeah.
So on top of that, you might be wondering, why would I use .text or RSS or XML? You'd use RSS if you already had an RSS feed for your entire application. It exists. You don't need to make another one. XML is probably what you're going to go with anyways, because as you'll see, it allows for more information. It also allows for indexing of media itself, where you can't do that with the text file. The types of things, and we'll even get into after this, which additional metadata even makes sense in a sitemap today. But XML is, it's the most verbose of these options, probably, maybe other than RSS. I mean, a TXT is super simple, but an XML gives you flexibility to be able to add more information. So you're probably going to use XML anyways. Apparently, the limit for a sitemap is 50,000 URLs on a sitemap and 50 megabytes. If you go over 50,000 URLs, you can create multiple different sitemaps. You can have mini sitemaps.
Yeah. If you go and peruse, I do this a little bit myself to find unlisted URLs on websites. My wife was really excited about this dress coming out once, so I wrote a little scraper that would download the sitemap every so often, and it would the sitemap often lists even all the images that were uploaded to the website, all of the pages that are on the website. And often those pages are public, but they're not linked anywhere just yet. So right, it's kind of security by obscurity. So you can download the sitemap and see all of the pages of the website, and you can sort of peruse through that looking for unlisted pages. But often, especially with like Shopify websites, you'll find it's sort of like an index sitemap, and then it links off to tags sitemap and product sitemap and blog post sitemap. Each one has their own sitemap.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's particularly useful when you have a whole lot of content. You also want for your URLs in a sitemap to be fully qualified, which means you need the whole dang URL. Relative URLs aren't going to cut it. You want that HTTPS in there. You want the whole deal. You want that whole dang URL to make sure that that's what it's looking for, right? It's not looking for anything relative here. Let's talk about fields and metadata for XML-based sitemaps. And I got a pop quiz for you, Wes. We have several different potential metadata fields. Let's say priority, change frequency, and last mod. Which of those actually matter in 2024?
Priority, change frequency, and last modified. I would say like priority doesn't matter because the days of telling Google what's important are over. They can figure that out themselves. I'm going to say frequency is important because if you have a page that is frequently updated, that needs to be re-indexed every hour, or something that's like a blog post and you'll never update that again.
The answer is that change frequency is completely ignored by both Bing and Google. Priority is also ignored by Google, as you mentioned, but Bing does use priority. So it does kind of make sense to still use priority. It doesn't make any sense to use change frequency, but apparently Bing does use priority. Google ignores it. Last mod, though, is the one that all of them care about. And it only matters, last mod only matters if you're using it consistently. So like, let's imagine every single time you update your entire application, the sitemap rebuilds and sets all of your pages to be last mod today,
Okay.
Then that's not good. You really want it to truly be when this page was last modified for Google to actually use that in an important way to know which content has been recently updated. So yeah, this was new to me because I personally used priority and change freak, but did not use last mod. So I was like using the two that didn't matter.
What about the Syntax website? Maybe we need to change that.
I believe the Syntax website has priority and that's it. Maybe it does have change frequency because we should definitely change that though. It's a bit of a pain to do that, but we should definitely change it.
It's change frequency and priority are on the Syntax one. And you're telling us you only need last mod?
Yeah. And even then last mod is like, it only helps if you have content that is changing, right?
Yeah.
If your content is published once and doesn't change, last mod isn't really helping you out that much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe just nuke them all. And like, because we've been going through the Syntax website and it's crazy looking at the webmaster tools, both like over last 6 months, a year, getting all of the pages indexed and finally to a point where Google knows about every single page. Because like even when we migrated, there was a point where like you couldn't find specific episodes on Google. Like it was not finding at all. So we had to really work at that. But Google changed their algorithm recently. And I posted a tweet about this. We mentioned it on a last episode as well. The amount that we're showing up on search results is just, we went right up with that algorithm change. So we're not even doing the best practice here. And Google's obviously showing our stuff a lot more frequently recently, which is good.
And you're not going to get docked for using priority and change frequency. It's just that Google does not care about them. Priority, like I said, Bing has it, so you might as well have it anyways. Yep. What types of things shouldn't be in your sitemap? Typically, dynamic user pages and account pages, so like my account or my account for, like the stuff that's not going to really need to be indexed, right? You don't want a search engine to take you to the My Account page because that's something that's hidden behind the login wall, right? So any dynamic user pages shouldn't be in your sitemap.
Yeah.
URLs with parameters, so parameter-based URLs should not be in the sitemap because if you think about it, parameters can be anything. right?
That's another one we had to figure out with the canonical URLs on the Syntax website is we have /shows, and that needs to be indexed. And then we also have /shows and type equals hasty, tasty, or supper. That needs to be indexed. But the pages of every single one of them, like page 1, page 2, etc., those don't need to be indexed because, well, no, the pages do need to be indexed, but some of the search filters do not need to be indexed. And I remember I had to write a very complex thing to sort of figure out what the canonical URL was, because there's unlimited combinations of the query params of like pages, how many per page, that was the other one, and a couple other filters that like there's unlimited. And if you go into the Google Webmaster Tools, it says something like 6,000 pages are not being indexed.
Yeah.
Because you told us not to. And I was like, good. Like those, yeah, we don't want you to index the page 4 of 15 per page.
Yep. Redirects also should not be in your sitemap, or duplicate or disallowed pages. Things that you have like being blocked in your robots.txt.
I got one more here, and this is a problem we had is the shows, basically the way that we create our sitemap is we just query the database for all the shows, and we query the database for all the guests, and basically anything that's a page, we just query it and use a function to generate the URL for it, right? But in that case, we forgot to filter out for future shows, and it was telling Google, hey, there's a page here, and then Google would go to that URL and it would find this page is coming soon. And that was a bit of an issue because when it was published, then Google would not know about the content until it eventually crawled that page again. So we had to filter that out and say, only show pages that are obviously in a published state.
Yes.
And not a future one.
Yeah, right. That's a good one here. So practically, how do you make a sitemap? Well, there's lots of ways. If you're using a meta framework, many of these meta frameworks these days have like a generator plugin that will just do it for you. I know there's certainly one for SvelteKit, and I can't imagine there's not one for Next.js. That seems like something that'd be very obvious to have. So you could just Google Next.js sitemap or any of that. And oftentimes what they are done, the way they work is that it's a part of like a build step. You put in like a post-build script. Once your application is built, it would run a post-build script. It would scan the routes the way that the application works, and then it would publish your sitemap for you. It's hard to do with the last modified. It was the last mod. So that one might be one that you might have to, work in how you do it dynamically. That gets a little bit easier in like a CMS-based site if you have that kind of metadata property on your field. The way that I've always built a sitemap, and I don't personally feel like I need these generators, although the generators are great because they can save you from missing things. But essentially, you're just creating an XML file. And the way that I've always done it is just have a route that returns an XML file that I've created as a string. So you create the string, you load in your collections from data, you loop over them, and you output those routes. And that way you have full control over it. You could even insert the last mod property if you have a updated at field in that data, and then that becomes dynamic and easy for you to do that instead of these generated ones, which have a little bit harder time with that type of thing. So that's how I've always done it. But again, the generated ones are nice and simple, and make sure you don't forget anything, or you can create it yourself. I don't recommend just making these by hand. That would take forever. Even my website, talin.ski, has like 70 links or something on it, 70 pages or something already. And I just made the dang site. So it just feels like that would be a hard thing to do. So find a generator or a way to do it that's baked into your platform. Typically every platform has a way.
Yeah, like they have this concept of pages. If it's like totally from scratch, like your personal website or the Syntax website where like there's no concept of a page, right? You can just, like Scott said, you can concatenate a string and throw it out the door. I would probably keep a array of pages and just store them as like objects, and then grab some sort of like JSON to XML plugin off NPM and then convert it out the door. Sitemaps are pretty simple, so I don't know if that's overkill versus just concatenating a string or not. But when it comes to like, oh, did I already add this one? Does this URL exist previously, well, let me search for it in the array. If that's the case, then it's sometimes nicer to deal with like an actual data object first, and then right before you kick it out the door, convert it to XML, because that sucks working with XML.
Yeah, for sure. So what do you do once you have it? You validate it. There's a ton of these validation things online. You just do sitemap validator, paste in your sitemap link. It'll typically tell you if something's broken in it. Even if you submit it to Webmaster Tools, it will tell you what's wrong with it. And then after you have it, you'll want to submit it to your search engine so that way they become aware of it. So the two ones that you really need to worry about are the Bing Webmaster Tools, bing.com/webmasters/about. We have the link in the show notes, or Google Search Console. Both of those two are the two big ones, right? Because I believe DuckDuckGo even uses Bing's search. If I'm not correct about that, please somebody update me. But either way, these are the two places you'll want to create an account and submit them. I know Google requires you to have a text record within your DNS to connect your site. Then you submit the sitemap. Bingo, bango, it is all good. And it typically tells you, again, like which pages are being indexed, and it gives you some good feedback on your application. So if you have anything that's a long-running website that you want to be indexed, having these Webmaster Tools and Google Search Console are two things that you're going to want to be familiar with regardless.
You know what's one thing? I was just looking at our Search Console, and it says discovered videos. That's probably worth doing. I often wonder that, like you go to the video tab of Google search, how to get your video to show up on that tab. I thought it was a mix of like the proper XML or that, what's that, LD JSON? Yeah, JSON LD, which is for linking data. That's used sort of like a meta tag, but instead of putting it in the head of the document, you simply just dump the JSON into the body, and Google will pick it up there. But it looks like there's also specific video tags for sitemap.xml, which will tell Google about videos, which is neat.
Sick.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
One more tip I have here is cache them. Your sitemap can be one of the largest files that is accessible to your website. And if they are generated on demand, that can be very taxing on your database.
Yes.
If it's literally querying every single record in your database in a lot of cases and looping over it, or at least pages. And then that file itself is fairly large because it's all text, right? And it's possibly an attack vector against your bill, both your database bill as well as if you're using something like a render or Vercel to generate the sitemap.xml and you don't have the proper caching headers on those, then that could be somewhere where somebody could just continually hit it, and it will cause a very large bandwidth bill on your end. So throwing caching headers, putting a CDN in front of it, probably a good idea.
Sick. Cool. Well, that's all I got for sitemaps. If y'all have any additional tips or tricks, leave a comment in the video below. But that should be enough. And you can find this video on YouTube if you want to leave that comment, youtube.com/@syntaxfm. That's all I got for you. Thanks so much for watching or listening.
Grab a t-shirt, sentry.shop. Peace.
Peace.